voice at the same time. You are the only one who can change the future.
That's it, Cassie! Freeze! Come on!
Did I die?
Do you guys remember Scary Movie and Not Another Teen Movie from 20 years ago? Remember when the market for teen comedies and horror movies became so oversaturated with cheap derivative knockoffs that parodies were made? Well, it seems like we've reached that point with comic book movies, because that's what Madame Web felt like. But did the producers intend for this movie to be a parody? And is Madame Web really as bad as everyone is saying? Join me, dear viewer, as I dive back into the dumpster fire that is Marvel. Many would say that the comic book genre of movies started when Fox put out a couple of bangers with the original X-Men film and Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. Ever since, we've gotten a decent slew of pretty good Spider-Man movies. Except for Spider-Man 3, that sucked. Even the Andrew Garfield iterations were pretty good. But then Sony began to collaborate with Disney's Marvel to bring Spider-Man into the fold of the MCU. This happened with Tom Holland and was again a pretty decent iteration and slew of films. But then Sony started diving into Spider-Man's rogues gallery and giving each one of them their own film. While not particularly bad, the Venom films did a pretty decent job, however forgettable they were. Tom Hardy as Venom was entertaining, and the leaning toward a lethal enforcer version of Venom worked decently well in the films. I honestly couldn't tell you what these two films were about since they were so forgettable. Not bad, but also not great. Then Sony treated us to the disaster that was Morbius. I'm not sure if that movie made any money at the box office, but suffice it to say, it didn't do Sony any favors. But off they went to make more spin-offs from Spider-Man's rogues gallery. Enter Madame Web. The original Madame Web was Cassandra Webb, a clairvoyant and telepathic character who first appeared in The Amazing Spider-Man 210 in 1980. Cassandra Webb was an elderly woman who was connected to a life support system which enhanced her psychic abilities but left her physically frail. She often provided guidance and assistance to Spider-Man and other superheroes. Later, another character named Julia Carpenter took on the mantle of Madame Web. Julia Carpenter was a former superhero known as Spider-Woman and had powers similar to Spider-Man's. After sustaining injuries in battle, she assumed the role of Madame Web, utilizing her psychic abilities to assist other superheroes. The character of Madame Web has appeared in various Spider-Man storylines over the years, playing roles as a mentor, advisor, and sometimes a prophetic figure. Her character added depth and mystique to the Spider-Man comics lore, so why not adapt her into the MCU? Well, in essence, I don't mind the character getting her own movie. Introducing this character ahead of a larger Spider-Man movie release makes sense, as there is entirely too much backstory for the character to be introduced in a place that makes sense. I'm a big fan of the 90s Spider-Man cartoon on Fox, in which Madame Web played a recurring important role, all leading into that iteration of Secret Wars. Now that she's already introduced and firmly in the MCU, she can pop in and guide Tom Holland's Spider-Man in the lead up to Avengers Secret Wars. So letting her have her own movie isn't necessarily a bad thing. What produces a lot of problems is bad writing, a staple of the modern MCU. This movie provides an origin story for the character that differs somewhat from the comics. In the movie, Ezekiel Sims is working in a South American jungle with Constance, Cassie's mother, in their research of spiders. Sims kills Constance after he retrieves a spider that would give him superpowers and runs away. Fast forward to years later, and Sims is having nightmares about a bunch of spider women trying to kill him. So he sets about trying to kill them before they could develop their powers. Meanwhile, Cassie discovers she has long dormant powers of clairvoyance, so she sets about rescuing the three girls while trying to figure out her past and future. The entire film is about as nonsensical as the MCU gets at this point. During the movie, I realized that it sort of resembled a parody. Once I started watching it thinking it was a parody, the movie actually became more enjoyable. The acting was entirely over the top at times, and I got the feeling that was as a cause of bad direction rather than the individual performances. I know that Sydney Sweeney is a decent actress given her stint on Euphoria and the runaway hit Anyone But You, so I was confused to see her be so awkward. It's like she didn't know what to do with their character of Julia Carpenter, the future Spider-Woman. Dakota Johnson likewise tried her best with what the script and direction gave her. Again, she's a capable actress, so we know the problem isn't with her, it's with piss-poor writing and direction. And that brings me to ask myself, what's the point of this film? Or any of the others that Sony has put out or plans to put out? Like, what was the point of Morbius? I guess there was as much of a point to Madam Web as there was to Morbius. If you're going to individually introduce each character and have a team-up movie in the future, fine. But I'm not really seeing the effort into bringing any of these characters together later into a Spider-Man movie. And that's really a shame because Madam Web would perfectly slide into the Secret Wars movie that Marvel is still planning. But Sony seems to be trying to milk the Spider-Man name for all it's worth while not really providing anything of importance to the overall narrative. It's like they don't know what to do with the characters and the IPs they have, so they're throwing shit at the wall and hoping it sticks. Is Madam Web the worst superhero movie of all time? No, you'd have to sink pretty low to beat the Marvels or Morbius. The film's cast is pretty easy on the eyes, even though it's very obvious that none of them wanted to be there. Couple that with a mediocre story, bad directing, and you get Madam Web, a film that really serves no purpose in the overall grand scheme of things. But what do you guys think of all this? Did you enjoy Madam Web? And how do you think it will tie into the Spider-Man franchise going forward? Please do let me know down below in the comments, and as always, hit that like button, ring that notification bell, and smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.